Hi, my name is Varuna. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to present the scenario around the universal safety. So universal safety is a provider of safety and security system to commercial customers. They operate in US and Canada. There are 100,000 customers right now with a growth plan of 10% per year for the next 5 years. Currently, the system they are using are not very well integrated. They plan to use Salesforce to have a more unified system for the users. Next, the key assumptions and decisions I've made. So I'm going to go with a single org strategy because I see we are within the limits, governor limits, and there are no regulatory requirements. And the business processes between countries and regions are the same, are not different. I'll be also using multi-language for the requirements. So I'll be using translation workbench as well as custom labels to achieve the requirement. Few assumptions I'm making. The design tool that we have, we need to use a Canvas app for one of the requirements. So my assumption is that they can incorporate the Salesforce Canvas SDK, and also with that they can communicate with Salesforce, and also they can upload the PDFs using an API via the Canvas SDK. Next, the monitoring system would have customer details where they keep assets and all. So my assumption is, along with the device details, it'll know somehow what customer they are related to. Next, I made assumption the IVR telephone system is in place for the call centers that they already have. Other assumption is for a given location, I'm assuming only one contractor would be assigned for installation. Next, we'll go through the actors. So internally, we have 3 actors, managers. They'll be using Sales Cloud mainly because they'll be looking at sales, the cases on how they roll up. And also the system specialist, I'm proposing to use a Service Cloud because they'll be using work orders to track some of the work they need to do at the customer site. Support reps, Service Cloud, again, they'll be using work orders as well as omnichannel for routing of calls. And let's go to the external actors. We have contractors. So I'm proposing for them to use a customer committee. They'll be mainly working with the installation data, and I'm not using opportunities in this proposal. And there's no need for them to use reports or complex sharing rules. So we'll be using sharing sets. At the customer side, we have 2 actors. One is a primary customer contact and secondary customer contact. For the primary contact, customer contact, I'm proposing to use Custom Committee Plus because we'll be giving delegated admin privileges, and also we'll be using some complex sharing. And also for the secondary customers, we'll be in Customer Committee, and there's no need for them to have any reports. Next, the role hierarchy for those actors. So we have different 2 countries, the US and Canada. Within the US, they have regions. Within all the countries, they have different regions. And within the regions, they have 150 offices distributed. And the system specialists, they are assigned to a particular office, which has office manager. And they do office manager and system specialists. System specialists do report to the manager. And the system specialist also are in charge of the contractors underneath them. Next, also in the role hierarchy, we also have the support reps. So there's 2 call centers, US and Canada. So they'll be reporting the US management and Canadian management separately. Next, let's go to the system landscape a bit in detail. So let's start from the bottom left. We have Active Directory, which is going to be the identity store for internal users. We'll be using ADFS as IDP for federation services, which will provide a single sign-on and using SAML to Salesforce. And also we'll be decommissioning the CRM systems, which has leads, appointments, and order details, and we plan to migrate them to Salesforce using ETL. I'm proposing to use ESP, MuleSoft, and also ETL for Informatica because with ESP, we can have a central point of logging. You can do the retry and translation and transformation of formats and layouts. And also we have the customer monitoring system. So there are 3 of them based on the acquisition they had. So ESP would do the orchestration based on which device or which customer they are going to be housed in this particular system. So it collects data, there's data collection, and also it can send notifications based on different events. Next, there are two ERP systems. We'll be partially decommissioning those systems, which will include sales, installation, scheduling, and support. And also we have a design tool that we are going to use to migrate some of the data through ETL, but we can also have a Canvas app where the users can interact with the design tool using a Canvas. And for ESB and ETL, we'll be using JOT-based auth flows for more security, headless flow, and also we'll be enabling two-way SSL between ESB and ETL and Salesforce. Also, I'm proposing to have a data warehouse where we can archive our data based on the large data volumes. And we'll have a mechanism to archive, and also via Salesforce Connect, we can view the archive data on the data warehouse. Going to the left side, we can see customers. They do log into Salesforce using social channels, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. For that reason, we'll be enabling auth provider along with the rich handler to support the social sign-on. And also they'll be using mobile publisher as a mobile tool where we'll use use agent flow to log into Salesforce. Again, system specialists, they'll be also using a mobile app to take photos and videos. We'll be using the Salesforce One mobile app, which supports use agent flow for authentication to Salesforce. Also on the right side, you can see a public website which will remain to exist, where we're going to get leads via web to leads for prospects, and also they have inquiries that's going to come through web to case. We'll be building them into cases in Salesforce. Within Salesforce, we can have a Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, and also a community for the customers and contractors. As I said before, we'll be enabling CC Plus and customer community licenses. And also from the App Exchange, we'll be using DocuSign for e-signature. I did mention that we'll be using Conga Compose as well for document generation. And also we'll be using a Twilio for SMS and Open CTA as well for our telephony integration. And we'll be enabling my domain as well for SP-initiated SAML single sign-on. Also, we'll be using Einstein Analytics for reporting purposes for managers. So we'll be having Einstein Analytics licenses and enabled in this particular org. Next, we'll go to the data model. So we have leads. So again, let's go through the color coding. Green means the standard objects, orange custom objects, purple for external objects, SS for the actor, as means the system specialist, and SR means the service reps. So going from left to right, we have leads coming in as prospects, will be converted to accounts and contacts. So we are also using a task for site visit purposes. And the account is going to have for the particular related account, there could be multiple locations, approximately 2. So 150,000 accounts and 300,000 locations. And for a given account or location, there could be financial data, which we can house in a different object for accessibility requirements. And also we are using custom object to create estimates where there could be multiple versions of estimates. And also we are gonna, when the installation happens, we are gonna have a master parent record called installation, which will connect all the details for the installation, which includes files under the installation, standard Salesforce files, where we keep track of the DocuSign documents, the design documents, and photos and files. And also after the installation is approved, we are going to place an order for the parts and the items, which includes order line items, and also it has a standard product price book and price book entry for pricing purposes. And also we are going to be using, for a given order, there will be ERP order details, which are going to be housed externally, and through OData, we're going to have access to those records in Salesforce, OData 4. And also, again, for these devices, assets, we'll be maintaining them on assets, which can be referred as to a case, and also those assets would be related to account, which is a customer. And also, for the servicing purposes, we are going to be using work orders, which we'll be using for service orders, where we can relate for which customer, which asset we need to perform these work orders. And if you look at the volume cases, we are around 6 million records, assets 30 million, work orders 3.5. And my plan is to address these data volumes, high volume. For issues are going to be tracked as cases, so it'll be around 6 million per year. So we can use the skinny tables based on the reports and queries, and also we can add custom indexes if there's a performance deprecation. And also my plan is proposal is if once the cases are closed and after more than 6 months, we can archive them and not keep them in Salesforce, and we can view them and retrieve them on demand through the data warehouse. Next, the two main things are on the schedule maintenance and maintenance task work orders, which are work orders, and on the ERP side, those are called service orders, which has around 3.5 million records. Again, my plan is, proposal is to, after the work order is complete, after 6 months, archive them. Again, on assets, which does not support skinny tables, we can have custom indexes based on the queries that we need to perform. After assets related to a customer which is non-active, we can have a mechanism. We can archive the data after 6 months in the data warehouse. So the goal is to keep the data what we need in Salesforce for interaction purposes. Whatever is stale, we're going to archive them and then have a mechanism to view them and retrieve if required. Next, we'll go through our business process. Starting from page 4. So the way the business process starts is first they have leads or the prospects coming through their public website. It could be through a call or through web to case in terms of inquiries, and web to leads could be coming through web to lead. And my assumption is when the call comes in, they already have, as I said, a telephony IVR system. So we'll be using open CTI to have a adapter from the app exchange. We can interact with Salesforce with a soft phone where they can accept the call and also make outbound calls through Salesforce. They have 5,000 prospects coming through these channels, so it's within the web to lead, which is a 500 day limit, 500 per day limit. So we can use a web to lead without any problems. So when the leads come in, they are gonna the support rep is gonna go through a flow with a quick caption and go through the questionnaire, which will be through a flow, and then we'll have a mechanism to convert the lead based on the questions they're gonna answer. After the lead is converted, where we'll have a customer account and a contact, we're gonna create a task. Let's go to the data model again. Sorry, we're gonna create a task for the site visit, which is related to the account, where they can capture the pictures and videos and upload them to Salesforce. So during this quick caption, I'm creating 2 records. One is the after the task is created, where they upload the pictures, then the system specialist, which is the owner of the task, is going to create an estimate. So my proposal is, when the estimate is created, we are going to create an estimate record and also an insertion record where we can track all the child objects. And we are going to use Conga to generate the report and send a version of the estimate to the customer for them to review the estimate. And also there's a reason to we need to capture a GPS location during this process. So we'll be using a Lightning web component on the mobile app, which using a JavaScript, we can use a Salesforce geolocation method to capture the current location when this action is taken. Next, so after the estimation record is created in this object, there are a few processes that are going to follow. One is we to make sure this customer get access to the community. So we'll be using as part of the flow, the customer and the account is going to be converted to community user, and they'll get a email to the Salesforce community registration for them to access the community. And they can, since we are going to be using for this estimate, we know exactly which contact or the account it is related to. And through a sharing set, we can make sure these estimates are available to the customer. So that you can say user contact account equals estimate.account. Based on that, they can have access to the estimate record. Next, in Salesforce, the system specialist is going to use the design tool. For this purpose, again, we will be using the Canvas SDK to interact with the design tool. And then once they do the design with the Canvas SDK, they can use a sign request with the sign request that they get. They can have a session where they can use to access API in Salesforce and upload this design file in Salesforce. The design file would be a file which is under the installation. Those are just standard attachments. And next, we are gonna once the design documents are created, there's a we have to notify the customer. So for that purpose, there'll be a quick action on the installation record where they can use the email template and send an email to the customer where they can get a notification about this design that they can access. And they want to interact with the design specialist and the customer. So we'll be using Chatter on the design plan where they can provide feedback, and specialists can do the changes or provide answers using Chatter. Next, once the design is meeting the customer requirement, the customer digitally signs the estimate. So for this purpose, on the estimate, there could be another version or another record of the estimate that the design specialist, support specialist is going to create. At that time, we'll be using Conga again to create the estimate, and we'll be sending through DocuSign for signature, e-signature. So Conga and DocuSign do interact together, and there's a quick action. We can send the in the quick action we can send the envelope ID and the related contact ID for the signatures who can sign, and based on that it will go through DocuSign for signature. After that, the customer is going to provide financial data. So financial data would be housed in a different custom object, which is to be marked in orange, where we'll first requirements for visibility. Those would be having a different object through a lookup to the account, where those records would be entered by the system specialist. And again, based on the requirements, we're going to go through another approval process for the installation cost. If the installation cost is high, which is going to be again attribute on the installation record, we'll be using Salesforce approval process to send it to the managers to get approval. Next, after the negotiation is done and sale is done, next step is to do the installation. For this purpose, we'll be using contractors who are external to Salesforce. Where so for the contractors to be created, there's a process where we'll be using so the contractors will be created in ERP, and there's a nightly feed that we need to bring to Salesforce. So we look at the integration number 2. So contract creation, there'll be a feed coming through a batch data synchronization pattern, where there'll be nightly batch will come through the ERP. My assumption is ERP will generate a file, and that from the file we'll be using ETL process to bring the data. And my assumption is there's not many 6,000 contractors, so there wouldn't be a lot created per day, and we can use a Salesforce API to create this record nightly in Salesforce. Next, after the again this account contact and users created, we have to make sure those are enabled as commit users. So once the records are created, we can have a flow based on the user create or the contact creation to create a user and enable them as a commit user. Next, system specialist is gonna during the installation process, they're gonna contact the contractor for the installation. So, on the installation, we are going to have a lookup to the contractor to see what contractor they're going to be related to the installation. And after installation is assigned by the system specialist, they're going to get access to documents, estimates, and photos. So the documents and estimates, documents and photos and edit and files are going to be under files of this for the installation. But since they lookup, since they got access, they can definitely get access to these file records based on the record relationship between files and installation. Next, they want to look at the estimates as well. So estimates are in a different relationship, but my assumption is we are going to be to get access to estimates, we need to have this. My assumption is we can add the contractor as a account team member. Based on that, we can have a relationship to give the estimates. So I'll change my license assumptions on the contractor to be customer community plus, where they can be part of the account team, and they can have access to the estimates. Yeah. So once they are assigned, estimates are given, access given, they can have a way to collaborate with the design. So again, we'll be using a chatter facility in Salesforce so they can provide comments against installation. Chatter for installation. So if necessary, system specialists can revise the documents and repeat the same process for approval. Again, will be once the document changes, we can run through the Salesforce approval process again on the installation record to get the required approvals. Once the design is accepted by the contractor, they update the status saying it's acceptable. So on the installation record, we'll have a status say customer is a contractor accepted. Based on that, we can generate another contracting agreement through for e-signature. Again, we'll be using a DocuSign to generate the contract and send for e-signature for the contractor. Once signed, there's from DocuSign there'll be an update coming saying with a process builder to update the status as complete. Based on that, we need to take quick actions. One is through the same flow, we can send an email to the support specialist saying, this contract has been signed, so they're aware of the signature. Based on the acceptance, they need to place an order in Salesforce. So they will be using the standard Salesforce order object, create the order and get the pricing based on the price book, and create the order in Salesforce for the devices. So once the orders are created, we need to send this information to ERP. So we'll be using an integration. Number 3, send order to ERP. So we'll be using a fire and forget method. There's no need for real-time integration. And ESP would do the orchestration to send to figure out which ERP to send by the country. So we'll be using in the flow, we'll create a process platform event, which in turn would be subscribed by the ESB MuleSoft, and call an API on the ERP side to create the order in ERP. After that, there could be updates on the ERP side where status could be updated. So we'll be using integrate number 5, where when it's arrived, we will have a remote calling that will come to Salesforce. Again, it will be come through API on ESP side, would be invoked by ERP. That will in turn create a platform in Salesforce, which would be processed by a flow in Salesforce to update the status. So these orders can be viewed in Salesforce as through external object. So my assumption is ESP or ERP could be the provider of the OData, and through Salesforce Connect, we can look at the ERP order details in Salesforce through an indirect lookup. Next, so we talked about the order status coming to Salesforce and arrival. So once the goods are arrived, we have to have another process where we have to send an SMS to the via email, an SMS to the customer. So what we're going to use, in the same flow of update status, we are going to use an email using email templates to send to them, and also SMS could be sent using Twilio as a managed package that we have installed. Next, during the installation, so there's an interesting point where the monitoring system would know what assets are being or devices are being installed for the particular customer, and there would be a feed that will come to Salesforce to create the device records. So again, my assumption was along with the device details, we would know what customer they are related to. So we're going to have integration number 6, where from the monitoring system to Salesforce, there'll be again it's a remote calling where we'll use through ESB, there'll be a platform event created in Salesforce, and that platform event would be again processed by a flow to create an asset related to a particular customer with all the device details. So after the devices are created in Salesforce, we need to send these details to the ERP to create an invoice. So along the same transaction, after the devices are created, we can invoke another integration, fire and forget method using fire and forget pattern to the ERP using the same as we said before to our ESP to orchestrate to the right ERP. Based on that, it'll through a platform event, it'll create a API, calling API on the downstream to create these invoices in ERP. Next, we are gonna after the installation is done, the next step is to have maintenance. So one way to do maintenance is they have a scheduled maintenance. So system specialist is gonna define on the account where on the particular account what kind of maintenance they require. For example, it's going to say starting this period, ending this period, and the frequency is going to be like twice a year. So based on that process, we'll have a nightly process that's going to go through it, and then like 7 days in advance of the target date, it's going to create a maintenance request. So these maintenance requests are going to be, as I said, through a nightly batch. We are going to create a work order. So the work order will have what assets related to, and then what action has to be performed. Based on that, the system specialist and can go and perform the work order related to the maintenance. And also we have to integrate these details to as a service order in downstream. So again, we'll be using and this one, the requirement is it has to be real time for this creation. So we'll be using a real request reply pattern this time, where we'll use an external service through flow, and we should call an API on the ESB, and we should call an API on the ERP to create a service order, and we will get a response back probably with the service order number to update in Salesforce. Next, we are going to go through the monitoring system, where we have during different events, there are going to be events coming to Salesforce to create different cases based on requirements. So for that reason, we'll have a number 10 integration. A monitoring system can create a remote calling pattern. We're going to get a request from them to create a cases to Salesforce. Once the cases are created, they need to be follow up with the customer. So those would be, using the omnichannel, those cases would be routed to the right service rep to be worked on. And also the case could be created by scanning a barcode. For the reason, we'll be enabling a barcode reader on the mobile app with a Lightning Web component, where once they scan, it can be related to a particular case as well. For the geography and expertise based on routing, we'll be using omnichannel with skill-based skill attribute mappings, and we can make sure the right agent gets called using omnichannel within skill-based routing. Again, after the maintenance repair is done, service order in the ERP system should be updated in real time. So again, from Salesforce, there'll be an update going to the using a fire and forget method, using real time as previously, where you use external service to update the status on the downstream ERP. Next, issues created by support rep should be maintained in Salesforce. So these are, again, would be creating cases, and then if there's a site visit required for this related case, we'll be creating a work order by the service rep. Data migration, next we're going to go to data migration aspects. So we have to bring data from CRM systems, ERP, customer locations, contact, service orders, cases, and also the PDF files. So we're going to use Informatica for this purpose. We can process high volume of data. So we can extract the data, do the data profiling, standardizing, enrichment of data, and also we have to make sure we don't bring in duplicated records. And also we have to make sure leads, when the leads are brought in, we have to make sure that we don't bring in who are converted to customer already. So all the logic could be done on staging, and then using Informatica's capabilities, we'll use bulk API to upload to Salesforce. We have to make sure this testing is done thoroughly in UAT with 100% of data and also other environments. Also, we have to make sure sequence is thoroughly followed, especially the parent and child. So user, account, contact, location, and leads. After that, the financial data and cases, estimates, and order lines. And then also before that, the master data includes price and price book as well. So also we have to make sure that sharing rules are turned off during the data load, and also the automation like triggers. Those processes could be, the data update could be done on the ETL side as well before the load. And also we can use external IDs to bring the data to make sure those are matched against the downstream systems using external IDs. Also, we have to make sure we can do a repeatable process using scripts, so we can run the script during go live without any problems, because it will be tested in other environments before the real go live. And on the visibility requirements, yes, first system specialist should be able to view and edit the customer and install system on their own customers. These customers are again owned by private and owned by the system specialist, and the assets are controlled by parents, so they could see those customers once they have access to the particular customer, and nobody else can see it. System specialist should be able to view customers and install data of specialists or other local offices. So there are 150 local offices, so we can use owner-based sharing rules based on the assigned office. We can share with the group in that office. And also, we have to make sure we don't share the financial data. So since we have a different object, which is a private object, it will not be shared with the other system specialist in the office. The managers has to be get access to this data as well. So we have to make sure both customer and financial data can roll up. So through the role hierarchy that we set up, they can see those data since their system specialists report to these managers. Next, contractors should be able to view and edit data only for the customers they are assigned to. So as I said before, we are going to be assigning these customers using account team, using so not Sharon said, and this since we are assigning using CC plus licenses in the account team, they can see the data, but they would not be able to see financial data because it's a different lookup to different object. Customer contact should be able to view and edit only their own customer contact install. So as I said, these customer contacts are part of the account of the customer, and they can see those account, and we can give edit access to this those based on the profile. And also assets, they can see the install data, and they can have access to since we have a control by parent on the asset. Next, on the requirements, these are primary customers and secondary customers, and primary customers want to see the account based on the relationship. So given this complex requirement, I'm proposing to use CC plus APEX sharing, because CC plus can support APEX sharing, and so that for that purpose, we'll be using APEX sharing for number 6. Sorry, for this particular requirement. Next, it talks about the support reps being able to see data within the geography. So when the data is created, we are gonna make sure the region is tagged, and then based on that, there could be 2 criteria-based rules, sharing rules per object, where they could see those records based on criteria-based sharing. Reporting requirements: support reps, assistant specialists, and managers should be able to run reports of sales activity and schedule for all the customers. These are again going to be orders and work orders. It will be a standard report based on a group by the customer, and it will be a standard Salesforce report. Next, support reps and system specialists and managers should be able to run a report showing the number of device monitoring events. So these events are going to be cases where they could run a standard Salesforce report on the case object. Next, about the ad hoc requirements, ad hoc reports. So they want to look at them as a different various period of time. Salesforce reporting training reports suppose only for 3 months plus the current month. So for this purpose, I'm proposing for them to use Einstein Analytics, where they can do ad hoc reporting and also training reports on Einstein Analytics with ease. For that, I'm proposing to use EA growth licenses. Next, Number 4, customer contact should be able to run reports showing issues and the status. So I'm not proposing for them to use the reports. So it can be a standard list view of the issues with the status, which also supports a pie chart on the list view. So my proposal to use the list view itself. Next, users would like to run a report that can have live data from a public website on a public website showing the number of monitoring events. These are cases and installation in the US and Canada. So for this purpose, we'll be using lightning out mechanism, which could be on a VF page, and that could be embedded on a public website with a provided user that can enable to get the data from Salesforce. In the project requirements, as I said, we're going to use multi-language enable for English and French languages. For emails, we'll be using email templates as well based on different these 2 languages. Next, it talks about the IT specialists are responsible for 2 ERP systems, and they have a great deal of autonomy. So I want to make sure, during this project, we bring up a COE in place. So my proposal is to, so we'll enable the COE for governance, which includes the steering committee, and then it has 2 arms: architecture, IT, plus the business sponsors, and also all these product teams would be a part of this governance model, which includes the architecture review board, release management, and also a special track for development, and also to make sure PMO and QA is in part of that. And also the business side, we'll have product managers, subject matter experts, and data stewards for data migration to make sure data is migrated properly, and for training and for change management. So with this structure, we can make sure the product owners and this center of excellence can work together to make sure we put governance in place so we can deliver this project on time. Next, it talks about the IT. The development team has only 1 test environment. So on the integration side. So for that purpose, I'm proposing that we have a proper environment management mechanism where you have a development used by Salesforce using scratch logs, and also we'll have a dev init environment where we can do regression and smoke testing. QA would be using functions testing and also Selenium for automated testing, and UAT we to make sure we get the user acceptance testing along with functional and migration testing and lead and performance done. For the code quality and to make sure the code is migrated properly, we'll be using a GitHub as a source driven approach, and also we'll be using different branching methodology to make sure the code is right features, right code is developed, is migrated to the right environment using Jenkins as pipelines, which when the code is running through these pipelines, will be running through automated testing to make sure the code quality is acceptable. And the release manager would be there to make sure they address merge conflicts and provide comments to the developers so they can redo the work if required. And also we'll be using SonarQube again to run to code quality before these releases are migrated to all the environments. And also, since we have less environments for integration, we can use mocks and stubs to make sure testing is done before these environments are available. And also, part of the environment, we can make sure we can have different periods where this testing could be done with the right environment with proper planning in place. US team would like to simultaneously release the completed solution in production for all regions in 4 months. So this one definitely calls for a waterfall methodology where we had to deliver in 4 months, and subsequent releases could be agile. So we have to make sure all the teams are aligned, especially the ERP, the monitoring system, which has developed and the design tool, which has developed a Canvas app as well. They are all aligned with this development plan. Next, UTC would like to recommend on how to manage the project to address priorities, technical issues, development, and team management organization. As I said again, we'll be using the COE concept where we have all the stakeholders involved, and make sure we put a race chart in place to exactly know who's going to be responsible who's going to be providing consulting service for different deliverables. So exactly we know who can sign off. And also for any issues that arise, we can make sure we have an escalation path or to the steering committee executive members, where we can have a periodical meetings with statuses, and with the summary would say what kind of requirements or assessment we need from the COE. With that, plus with the PMO, we can make sure we can address these issues. And also, there's one point about the technical design issues. Before the issues arise, the architecture review board will publish the standards. And also with the testing methodology, we said we're going to be making sure the design and development is meeting the standards and the standards set by the architecture review board. Thank you very much. That's my presentation. I'm ready for Q&A.
Thank you very much, Varuna. Great presentation. I will pause the recording now. Thanks, Varuna, for being back. Sorry, Cesar, you want to get started?
Yes, Varuna, thank you for a great presentation. I'd have a couple of questions on your presentation. And could you go to your actors drawing? Yes. I have one question on your system specialist. So you say that they need Service Cloud license based on the work orders justification. Can you please explain it?
Yeah, because I'm assigning some of the scheduled maintenance tasks for the as work orders for them to go and address the issue. So work orders are not available on Sales Cloud. So for that reason, I'm giving them Service Cloud licenses.
Okay, thank you. So I don't have any follow-up questions. If your suggestion is that it's not available on Sales Cloud, probably I don't have any follow-ups.
Yeah. So Varuna, can you go on the lead conversion part?
Okay.
Okay, so I see lead converted flow quick action. Can you explain which quick action is there you're talking about?
Yeah, the quick action is to call this questionnaire. So after the questionnaire is done, then there'll be they'll use a standard convert lead function. So my quick action was meant to say the flow to ask the questions and to pre-qualify.
And after that question, how the standard flow would be called? That would be manual, or you automate that part?
It'll be the standard process.
Okay. How would you restrict conversion of the lead? Let's say if this questionnaire is not met.
How do I stop the question? Okay, we can have a validation rule. So before the so when the button is clicked, we can check whether, for example, a particular attribute is marked as yes or no. So that attribute can be marked yes or no based on so it can be defaulted no in the creation, and then during the questionnaire, based on the answers, we can mark as qualified, and that can be checked during the lead conversion. So at that time, lead conversion, I need to probably not have the standard button. I can have a custom button where I can verify the check and then call the standard lead conversion process.
And how that would work? How can you call the standard lead conversion process from button click?
That I'm not sure. Sorry to pass that.
Okay, that's fine. Johann, next.
Thank you very much. You talk about in your, can you please go to your role hierarchy? As far as I remember, you said that contractors, that the primary customers have a CC Plus license. Is there anything you would like to change on your role hierarchy regarding this information?
I gave CC Plus mainly because they are dedicated admins. But yeah, so if they are, yeah, so if the Yeah, the customer would be owned by the system specialist now, because he'll be the record owner or the channel partner for that. So then I would say that role, which is a role-based account, the CC Plus, would report to the system specialist.
So, and is there any limits around roles you have to consider?
Yes, so there's for external users, 10,000 rows is a default, but you can go up to 500,000 rows. So I don't see they have only 300,000 customers, and then so I don't see a limit on the 10,000. Yeah, 500,000.
Okay, just a follow-up question here. Let's assume that we have 600,000 or 700,000 customers. Is there anything you can do to reduce the number of rows?
Yeah, we can use so if the rows are not being used, so we can use the APO, which is called the account role optimization. So where it'll, for the unused rows, it'll create a single role under that account, and then all the users would be tagged at one single role. So.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay, so in your sales and design, can you talk me through how would be the user experience or probably entire flow for the number one? Sales and design number one, yeah, requirement, please.
Yeah, so the leads, so the prospects would come in either first they could call the call center and then ask questions. Other thing is they can also for the prospect action. So on the community website, they can fill up a form. So in the case the form is filled up, it will come as a web to lead, and the lead would be created, and then it will be assigned to a queue where the service reps on the particular region, based on the region, they can pick up the queue from the leads. But if you want to use some kind of a way where leads are assigned using based on the availability of the agents, you can use omnichannel. So leads would come that way. Other option, when they call, based on the call, they can create a lead. The service rep can create a record on Salesforce directly, and then they go with the questionnaire.
Okay.
Okay, my question is on the page 5. It's the first one on the top. So if you just scroll down a little bit. Yes, so can you please explain to me how the users get access, the customers get access to the estimate, how they collaborate on this estimate? What happens if they have a new version of the estimate? Where this data is stored and along this line?
Okay. Yeah, so estimates I'm creating on a separate object. So on the estimate, I would know which customer is related to. Based on that particular customer, I on the lookup, based on that, I have a sharing set to show that the contacts of that account can see the those estimates is a sharing set based on the profile, and also to restrict which ones are active and not active on the list view. On the estimate, I can probably have a version to say what's the active version, and a new version is created. I can automatically update the other version to say like old version. Based on that status, I could have a filter on the list view to show only the most up-to-date or the current version.
And if they reject the estimate, if there is any need to reward the estimate, how do you store the previous copies? Based on location, based on?
Yeah, based on the approval process, you can do a field update. So I can update the field to a status to say unapproved or unapproved. So again, from the list view filter, I can show only the views, only the records which are has the current right status.
Okay. Johann, thank you.
Thank you very much. So you talk about communities. Do you have 1 or 2 communities?
I have one community because there's I'm using Chatter for them to collaborate. So the collaboration could happen between customer and the contact, who are both external. So I have one community where both parties can be logged in.
What is the let's say considerations you have to do when you use one community for 2 different user groups?
I mean, to make sure based on the they'll both have different profiles. So based on the profile, we to make sure that the right objects are available for them to view, and also make sure the right data is available, not the unwanted data, which they should not see.
Will they see the same fields on the objects?
No, we'll have 2 different profiles. So each profile would have its own FLS.
So you will and will the fields be ordered in the same way on the page layouts? So you have one page layout for both profiles?
Yeah, for this requirement, I didn't see any requirement where they would need to have 2 layouts.
Okay. And so is there any other way in community how you can show or restrict the components based on the profile?
Yeah, you can have dynamic forms for custom objects. So that way you can control some visibility based on the different conditions.
Is there anything which is community specific where you can show or hide specific components based on specific attributes of the user?
I mean, you can have session-based permissions. So when they log in based on session, what profile you can add different permissions. So session-based. It's not community-based, but it's another feature you can use.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Varuna, can you go on page number 4 and requirement number 6? Scroll up.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you explain me how the 6.a would work?
When user employees log into the internal network, they should be able to connect to Salesforce, including deep links, without having to log in again. My thinking was, so they are on the network. They probably have a login page on the. So they have a portal on the based on the IDP that they have. So based on that, they want to click on. So they've logged into the. They've already authenticated against the IDP provider, and then they have a bookmark. So, for example, they have a bookmark to a particular record. My assumption was they would click on that, which will be a SP initiated SAML flow, and with relay state, we can bring them to the right record when they log in.
So your suggestion would be to bookmark the record of the Salesforce if they want to log in. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so when there's an internal network, probably they talk about IWA, integrated Windows authentication. So which is Microsoft-based protocol. So they can if they're talking about IWA, it's also supported as well. So as long as IDP supports IWA protocol, we can support this as well. So when they're on the network, they can, when they go to the Salesforce site, it'll be automatically logged in.
So last follow-up question on that one. Now, what exactly is the IWA? How that works?
Integrated Windows Authenticator. So the network, when they log in through the say when the network credentials, there has to be a like on the desktop, like the IWA kind of a client or a running, which would know that this Salesforce site is supported. So at that time, it will be a SP initiated flow to SAML. So it'll redirect the internally, it will direct to the IDP because they have a session with the IDP, and then based on that, it will log you into Salesforce automatically.
Okay. Tsezarii, Bibhu.
Bibhu? Okay, then I'll go. So I have a question on page 5, and 6. The back at the office, not on the top of the page, right? Okay. 6, 7, and 6 and 7. So you create the new document up to 100 megabyte, and you need to work on them. You need to share them with the client. You need to reword them, and the client needs to get access to them. So how do you share it with the client, and how do you collaborate with the client on those files, especially if you have different versions of the files? And what is your consideration about the size of these files that might be generated in one go, in one installment?
Yeah, so my assumption is, the thinking was, the plan was that the system specialist is going to use a design tool. And since it's going to have the Canvas SDK, and they can interact with Salesforce using API because they have the sign request, they can call the API in Salesforce to upload the files. So at that time, so we'll have under the installation, we'll have the design files as an attachment, so they can upload that. The Canvas app can upload a file using an API against the installation record. And to give that access to the customer, so with the customer, I have with the account with the customer, I have a master detail for the installation, and through installation, we can make sure these are standard files. So based on the record access for the installation, there's an implicit share that you get on the files, so they could see the design files as well as a attachment.
And if so, you keep the files in the system, right?
Yes.
And considering that we have 5,000 new users, new prospects each month, and let's say they have half of them will be accepted as leads, and they will generate 2 files, 2 versions. We have 500 gigabyte of data generated in 1 month. What are you going to do about the volume? Will you store it?
Yeah, so with this, I get 10 GB and 2 GB per user. So it's around 6,000 users. Yeah, other option is, I mean, if it's a storage issue, we can make sure we can use a kind of file connect supported platform like SharePoint, where you would have a link. And these customers are not many. Only thing we need to make sure is, we provide the right security. So we can have but yeah, so we have to make sure that, so yeah, if you're using external system like through File Connect like SharePoint, you can have a reference to that document in under files and not store it, so you would not use the space. But in terms of access, it's always good to use per user authentication. So I would not want to expose that method. Probably we can use for external users. We can use like a box base as a file storage, where we can share we can control the access using folders, and box as an API where we can call to give right access to the right customer, right user. So I would use box to give access to files to external users.
Okay, so you would have box on additional to your data warehouse solution that you have already in place.
Yes, I mean, data warehouse I'm keeping for archiving like old data, not for the live ongoing data. So a box would be for installations which are in progress, where they can access files.
Okay, and in terms of collaboration, you would just use Chatter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you see any issues that you have different files versions and you have one Chatter flow like on this object? That's my last question on this topic.
there are multiple files. They want, so is the requirement you're saying they want to see only the latest design document?
I mean, what is your solution to relate the conversation or discussion around the proposal for an exact specific files version?
I mean, I would have as I said, on the record itself, I would have or a naming convention on the file. So on status, we can say what's the active versus old. So based on the status, they could figure out what is the latest version or a versioning mechanism where they could sort by the version number and then find the right file. In case they want to look at the old file and compare and so on, so they would have access to the old versions as well. So I'll have a version mechanism with the status.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Varuna. You talk about that the customer community user gets created automatically. Can you walk me through the process?
Customer user, okay. After the lead is converted, okay, hold on. Do you see the exact section?
This was after, I think after the finance data was created or something like that. Yeah, here it is, number 5.
Yeah, so now we talk about the after estimate, it's created to give them access to the estimate.
Mm-hmm. Can you walk me through how the user is created specifically?
Yeah, I mean, my thinking was that at this time when the estimate is created, the system specialist, they can create the user through convert to committee user, so they can call standard quick action on Salesforce under contact to say convert for the customer. They can do a custom convert to customer, and after that I have a sharing set on the once the estimate record is created. Since there's a on the estimate, there'll be a lookup to the customer. I'll have a sharing set on the estimate to, based on the sharing set, they would see the estimate that are on the particular tab on the community.
Yeah, can you walk me through how the customer community user itself is technically created? How does this work?
The standard from the UI, you would do convert to committee user. At that time, a user record would be created as well with a link to the contact, and then they fill up all the details what they required. Once they save, the email would come to the for the customer where they can log in and set their.
So
Varuna, sorry, Johann. So on that, as in because we are explaining it, so go to that contracting and installation section, please, because there is a requirement where you need to create it automatically. Can you walk us through that? Because I was also trying to understand. I think, yeah, 1B. So when it is created in ERP, you're creating it in Salesforce. How do you do it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, first I was talking about the customers. This is about contractors, right?
They're also community users, right? Contractors as well.
Okay. So those would be housed in ERP. So in ERP, there'll be a daily bash that I'm going to get, which would be processed through the ETL, where based on that they can create the account, contact, and also the user. At that time, and on the user record, you have to say portal user has to be set to true, and also you have to make sure you set the right profile. Based on the profile, they would get the right license. So
how is the user record gets created? As in, what is the sequence of things that you're doing in here? Can you explain that to me a little bit technically?
Yes, so it'll be account, contact, and user. So in this case, I think there are 3 levels. I would have ESP call 3 separate calls. First, get the account ID back, Then for contact, create the contact related to that particular account, external ID, and then create the contact record, which is going to be related to the contact with the profile, with portal user true, and relation in that there's lookup to contact as well, and you can fill it up at that time when the last user record is created. The full link happens, and it'll be a commit user at that time.
So you just said that you're going to create that through ESB. How is ESB coming into picture in this case? And you said me that you're going to have Salesforce daily file will be extracting through ETL, and then I'm just confused how that's going to happen, please.
Yeah, so I changed my approach since I have only a few, like 6,000 contractors already. I would not assume there'll be lots of contractors created daily. So ESB could handle the file as well, because I want to make 3 calls, right? So I want to make sure ESB can handle that pretty well. Make one request, get the response based on their response. They can do a second request, so they can do the orchestration pretty well compared to ETL. So that reason I'm going to go with MuleSoft in the ESB side, which can handle the files as well. Which is not very high volume of data per day, and you can call the calls, make the 3 calls sequentially and with the right orchestration.
So Varuna, on those 3 calls, what are happening? What is happening on the first, second, and third call? Okay.
First calls will be to create the account for that related, because it's a committee user, you need to have the account and contact and user. And next there'll be a contact record created with relate to that account for that particular contractor. And third one would be community contact user record created at the time with that record, as long as the portal record is set to true, and you have a look up to the contact created, it'll be a full commit user.
And on that, when you're saying your customer contractors, I see on your actors and licenses contractors having customer community license. So do you still need to create the account and contact, or you're using any other model?
Yeah, I changed it to CC plus because I'm part of the account team.
Okay.
Okay. Cesar?
Yes, thank you. So I have a question on your integrations on point 11 on your integration slide. Do you use for creating of service order in real time, you use fire and forget pattern? Can you please walk me through?
That's my mistake. So it's a request reply where I would use on the creation of the flow, I would use excellent service, which would use the same pattern here. It'll call an API on the ERP, and then API will be called on the ERP side through the ESP, and then response would come back to Salesforce.
Talking about external service, can you please explain to me what is that, and how do you set that up in Salesforce?
Yeah, so external service is so first of all you have to create a name credential with all the authentication parameters. And in Flow, when you create external service, that API schema has to be defined using API 2.0 with the Swagger format. So once you get that API specs, you can import it. Where internally Salesforce create some Apex classes. Along with that and the name credentials, you can create the external service, which you can be called through a flow.
And how would that my external system like in ERP would get the data? Like, what do you do? Like, you're making a call from Salesforce to ESP, and then ESP is sending that to your ERP. What would be your data format and all the stuff? How would you have the exact data format that is required in ERP?
Yeah, my assumption is I'm using MuleSoft for the ESP. So the service provider in this case would be first for Salesforce, it would be MuleSoft. So MuleSoft through their API design, they can create this API specification file for Salesforce to consume, and then ESP would call the API in the format that ERP is already providing, either REST or SOAP. Where MuleSoft will do the transformation and call the right format. But for Salesforce, the API would be API provider would be MuleSoft at the so that's why the specs would be given by MuleSoft to Salesforce.
Is there how exactly can you the external service from which automation tool can you call it?
From Flow?
Okay. Is there any limit? What are the possible input and output parameters from external services?
Input parameters would be the order details. Which includes the order header and the child records. So and now the new enhanced external services, they support iterative child objects as well. So you can definitely use in the service order, and the output would be after its record is created, we would get a service order number, which is related to the unique ID on the ERP, which we can use to going forward to get updates. So it'll be stored as a external ID in Salesforce.
Okay.
And also the status as well to say successful or failure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sister?
Yeah, Varuna, one question. Go on the data volume slide. So here in the data volume for the devices, you are using the assets. What is the long-term and the short-term solution? Can you talk about again on the data volume here?
Yeah, so there's 30 million records created for a year. So based on the reporting requirements and also the list views that they perform, if they want to search, for example, by status of the asset, so I want to make sure those the status field is on an index. We have to make sure we do testing based on the volume of data to make sure they are reports and queries are performing well. If not, we can run so we can based on the analysis, we can create custom indexes. Unfortunately, it does not support skinny tables. So that's my proposal is to use custom indexes, and also the queries. We have to make sure we are using formats like equals to, not to include things like contains, not equals to, and so on. And also long term, my proposal is to archive them in the data warehouse, where, for example, if the customer is not active anymore, we can have a mechanism to archive in the data warehouse and still view the records using Salesforce Connect to look at the data archive records.
Okay. If the devices or asset does not support skinny table for the long-term solution, any reason to use? What was the main reason to consider the asset object here?
Few reasons. One is for example, in the future, they want to use like asset token flow, where assets has to be created automatically. Using that flow supports these devices being on assets. And it has a standard, already have lookups to accounts and contacts and so on. So other than and also the assets could be linked to the work orders. Links are already related. So that's the reason.
Yeah. So we're on a follow-up question on that one. So you used the word asset token flow. Any reason you are not using asset token flow right now?
Yeah, I mean, they said there's a device is there, and they get a like a integration through the backend. So I'm not sure they have a client related to that device. If there's a particular client that they can use, we can definitely use asset token flow, where we would Salesforce would be in between the device backend and the device, and use the same flow to create the asset. So it could be used as well.
So what's your final recommendation?
I'm API for now as my option.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have time?
Yeah, we have time.
Okay, I have a question on scheduled maintenance on point 1.
On the okay contracting. Okay.
Yes. Can you please explain your solution again? So point 1. So it's set by the system specialist and then managed by support center. I haven't seen it on your solution. I think you go with the custom development, right?
Yes. Yeah. So system specialist would say the start date, end date, and the frequency. And it's managed by the support center translation. Yeah, so I'm right now creating a work order. So so I think, yeah, so I would definitely change that. My approach, I would create a case as well. So the case could be assigned to the service reps through a queue. They can look at the work orders, sorry, the cases, and relate to the case. I could have a work order. So I thought I had it. Yeah, so I had a work order and I had related case as well. So I didn't mention it here, but I would create a case as well to that particular work order. So the case can be tracked to the service reps, and once they know exactly whom to assign to the work order, they can do a assignment on the work order.
So in this case, you would create a work order after installation, or you would create a case?
No, when it's due 7 days in advance, I would create a case, could be tracked by the service reps. Along with the case, I would create a work order. Work order will have exact details in terms of what asset, what is the location, and so on.
Okay. And where do you store information about the date of the maintenance?
On the work order.
Okay, can I just have a follow-up question here about this? What if one customer has more than one installation? Because you track the maintenance plan on the account, as far as I remember, correct?
Yes.
What if one customer has more than one installation?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely ask first how to get the business requirements. So, for example, if its assets are like manageable by one work order, then I would.
Now let's say we have one customer has multiple installations and they have different maintenance plans, maintenance schedules. How would you manage that? Let's just change the assumption here.
By location, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then on the work order, I would have a link to that location as well to say exactly what location it's related to and against which particular account. And if that location have multiple assets that they have to serve and they want to know all the details, I would have a work order line items, volleys, to say what assets underneath that work order.
And where would you store the maintenance schedule?
My maintenance schedule is on the account so if you say it's based on the
okay,
different by the location, I would store at the location level.
Okay, and would there be a connection between the assets and the locations as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Tsezarii, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Last question: how do you manage this the specific schedule and give the ownership to the support rep on the schedule in the first go? Because the schedule needs to be set by system specialist, and then managed by the support center. So how do you address this requirement?
Yeah, so the owner of the location and account would be the system specialist, right? So they would set up the schedule, say the frequency and when it's going to expire and so on. So I have a batch job that's going to run nightly, and based on this parameter, it's going to create that when it's like 7 days due, it'll have the logic to create the case and related work order. So the case would be given to the service rep, where they could pick it up from a queue, and then this particular type of cases. And since the work order is created already, you could see for this case what are the related work order, and then for this work order, they can assign it to the based on the criteria on the availability and so on. They can assign to a service system specialist to go and perform the work order to get it closed. They'll have a lookup here as well, assigned to as well. They can change the assignment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Okay. Can I go to a different topic? Let's go to governance. I have a question about your test data strategy. Can you walk me through your test data strategy, please?
Yeah. So for test data, we have to make sure like on so best thing is like we have to make sure that this data that we are loading, we have to get a snapshot of it, and then start like full data load in UAT, and then partial set of data should be in low environments as well. But on the developer scratch jobs, we can based on this sample data, we can create a JSON file. So when the scratch jobs are created, we can include this sample data, and also we can have a on the test classes, we can use a data factory as well to make sure that the data is available for testing. And for also, yeah, these are like, if production data, we have to make sure if in the subsequent releases, if we are loading to lower environments, we do the masking of the data given the sensitivity. That's my approach to build custom data for testing.
Thanks a lot. Where do you store this JSON file?
So on the scratch jobs, when they're on your Visual Source, your VS Code, you can have a folder with this JSON file and the CSV.
Thanks a lot.
Varuna, on the visibility and accessibility requirements, can you please explain to me how would you solve number 6?
There are certain customers with multiple customer accounts and locations set up in the account hierarchy. So these customers, yeah, I was going with since the primary customer contacts are on the customer community plus, I was going to use Apex sharing, but also another option is since there are external accounts, I could enable external account hierarchy and then have a relationship between who's the child, who's the master. Only thing to keep in mind is for this scenario, it works only on the parent, the data would roll up onto the topmost role. But since in this scenario, we have only one role, it should work fine. So we can use.
What's your solution?
What's my solution? Yeah, we can go to external account hierarchy.
Okay. Any limitations that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so there's only like 10,000 accounts could be on the hierarchy.
So Varuna, follow-up question on that one. Go on your actor and licenses. Your secondary is a customer community license, right?
Yep.
Do you still think external account hierarchy would work here?
Question is if the data is, yeah, because this data is not owned by the any of the community users. Yeah, it's because the primary customer is on the top of the role and the top role, and the requirement says only the primary contacts want to see. So I don't see any reason why it will not work.
But
Okay.
let's say a secondary customer contact created a case. Because it says that it should be able to see all location and subordinate data across all related accounts. So let's say the secondary customer contact created a case. How would your primary customer contact get access to that?
Yeah, so my thinking is like as long as the child account has related records, those all would roll up to parent account on who's on the top role hierarchy. If there's a limitation on it'll not roll up of the records created by CC committee users, then I would stick with Apex sharing, so we can manage giving a sharing rule to the right CC plus user based on all these conditions. So I'll stick with Apex sharing.
So Varuna, even in that scenario, how that work? Does Apex manage sharing work with the customer community users?
No, but these are so the owner creator is by a CC, but on the particular record for the on the case, we can create a share rule on the case where the link is between the case and on the CC plus user.
So you're saying if the case owner is customer community user, you can create a sharing rule on that case? Oh, sorry, sharing record on that case?
Yeah, sharing rule, it's basically to whom to give access to.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question on your migration strategy. By the way, nice slide. So data migration.
Okay.
And here you say that dev int will have 40% of all data. So what is the environment that you give for dev int?
I have dev pro.
Do you think that what is the limit of dev pro in terms
Pro
of?
is 5 GB. No, it's 1 GB. 1 GB. So yeah, I think 40% is not correct. So it'll be definitely less than that. So
Okay.
partial could have 5 GB. So I could definitely change this to a partial. So I could have 5 GB of data to support more data. So I would definitely change this to the partial.
So you have 2 partials, 1. You didn't have any dev pro or dev sandboxes.
I'm sorry?
You just have 2 partial copies and 1 full copy sandboxes in this case, right?
Yes.
Okay, I have another follow-up question on the data migration, and you mentioned that you would like to script your migration in order to reuse the script in the future. So do you foresee any, or what is the reason for reuse the script? That's one question.
Yeah.
So what data needs to be re-migrated from the systems?
Yeah, my reason was so when you're going for the go live, it's not something that you try for the very first time. So you have a sequence set up. So it'll be a kind of repeating the same sequence that you had tested before. There's no new steps introduced, nothing. So it's all going to be can be tested much in advance. That's the reason for scripts. So also on the script, we can make sure we log at the different stages what's been moving forward, what's going to be removed from the path. So on the staging instance, we'll keep track of at each and every step, what's data has been migrated, what are the failures. So later on, if there are questions, so that's the reason we have a data stored as well. So make sure that we get sign off to say what's been migrated as you go along during different steps, and we keep a log.
Okay, and for data migration, what is your migration approach? Is it big bang, or you have any phases, or what is your approach in this case? Do you want to switch all the system at once, or you would do it gradually?
Yeah, so I mean, if as long as we can fit the window where we can have for example, like a weekend where users are not using it, or we can probably ask the users to use a backup mechanism if they're okay. In terms of they already should have a way to handle this business requirements through since systems are not available. So we can ask them to follow the same approach. Maybe they take things on paper, and then once system comes live, we can ask them to re-enter. And also the integrations, we can make sure we have a mechanism to do retries, especially through ESB. Once there are integration that's going to flow through, so we have to plan it out much in advance. We have to get the timing, how quickly we can do it, and when the users are going to come in, and also whether we could have a downtime on the systems. So there's a lot of things that will decide the approach we to take.
So you suggest to work on the weekends for the migration for your team,
Uh,
and then to switch all the system at once you're done, and not run in parallel with Salesforce?
So for downstream systems like ERP, if the things are going to flow into Salesforce, we can still ask them to send those messages, and ESB can hold those messages and do a retry. So it does not be like turning off the ERP. But for Salesforce or CRM users, as long as we get the approval, we can not a weekend. It could be any time where there's less activity, or that they could give us a window that has to be decided as part of this approach, and based on the window, we should plan the migration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's do the last round. So one more time, Bibhu, Jitendra, and me. Sorry, now I'm not prepared. Yeah, you mentioned that you used the mobile publisher. Can you walk me through your reasoning why you used the mobile publisher?
Yes. So mobile publisher, I mean, it provides the branding for the customers based on the community. So you don't need to build a separate app with the branding, and also it provides like persistent logging, and it's available for the to download from the app stores, and also the changes you do on the community in terms of adding components or visual effects. Those are automatically available through the mobile publisher.
Okay. Any risk you see using a mobile publisher?
Yes, so it has to. I mean, Salesforce is going to be involved with the publishing and getting the approvals through the App Store and Android. So to make sure, sometimes there could be delays based on the different standards that they follow. So to make sure we allocate right time to get the approvals, and also we have to test them as well using test flights and other approach for Android. So we to make sure we allocate time for both testing and approval.
Okay, thanks a lot.
And on your system landscape, I see you have mentioned that your ESB and ETL both will have a two-way SSL with Salesforce. Can you explain to me what is a two-way SSL and how is that set up in Salesforce?
Yes. So coming into Salesforce, say for example, to MuleSoft, you have to have a CA sign certificate. We have to get the certificate uploaded into. We first have to enable mutual authentication, and then based on that, we can upload the certificates under keys and certificate management area. After that, when the request comes to Salesforce, it has to come through port 8443, and also for that API user, we have to enable TLS SSL permission. That way, that certificate would be validated by Salesforce the server. So it will be validated by Salesforce as part of the mutual authentication. Going outbound to the other party, we can use it could be a CA sign or it could be a self-sign certificate. Salesforce support both. Those could be provided when the message is or the integration is going out of Salesforce. It could be provided as part of the name credentials.
And you say that, okay, I need to enable this mutual authentication. How do I enable it in Salesforce?
Open a ticket with support.
Okay. And do I need this two-way SSL for the ETL? And then what is the purpose of having a two-way SSL on the ETL?
No, actually, because ETL is only inbound, so it's be one is mutual, other one will be two SSL. ESP will be going back and forth, but for ETL it will be one way coming in.
Thank you.
So, Varuna, last question from my side. You're using Lightning out, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the security around how would you set up the security in the Lightning out?
Yeah, so I would definitely have using you can enable as a auth-based sign-on. So we have to have make sure there's a user that can do the approval, and there's a valid user allowed to be connected. So I would use auth-based setup done, so they can do we can have a connection based on a particular user and through a yeah.
Okay. But the requirement is bringing live data on the public side, right?
Yep.
So on the public side, how would someone do the OAuth?
Good question. Yeah, my thing is on the before on the public website, if it's before it's given to the public as part of the setup for that lightning out component, you have to enable the authentication. So yeah, this one I'm going to pass on this one. I need to read up on this one a little bit more.
Okay, I'm good. Tsezarii, do you have a question?
Yes, so on the governance, you have a lot of governance bodies. So what is your opinion? You have a four months project. Creation of so many different government bodies probably takes a lot of time. And steering committee, in terms of meetings, how often will they meet?
Yeah, so on the 4 months, I would definitely first I want to make sure that we, as part of the project, like a discovery phase, we have to make sure this 4 months is really doable, and also we have to make sure resources and that we have. So we have to make sure that we do a estimation of the stories that are developed, align in terms of the number of people we have, and then if they can still agree on the MVPs that have to be delivered in 4 months. Since it's a very strict timeline, we have governance in place. So those are the roles. It doesn't mean like so the same role could be fulfilled by the same individual. So it's not it's just the roles. It's not the number of people. So in terms of question, how often they should meet given this timeline, I would say at least bi-weekly they have to meet. So there will be 8 meetings. But also if there's a decision that's needed without the meeting, certainly can call ad hoc meeting, and it could be just not a meeting, it could be some kind of way to collaborate and get a decision to move forward. So I'll have a mechanism in place in terms of how you communicate and how the meetings are set up through a cadence.
Okay, and the steering committee and central of excellence will have the same meeting schedule?
No, I mean steering committee. I mean, if they're like top level executives, they might not have all the time, but we'll have a mechanism to make sure they get the updates frequently in a summarized format. So if the decisions has to be made, we need to have a mechanism. Rather than having a meeting, there should be a way to approach them and have the yes/no kind of a decision, which would not impact the timeline. And there's impact on the timeline. Definitely, we have to make sure we raise it up much in advance to make sure we can take actions, either adding resource or adjusting the timeline. So.
And in your requirement, you have 2 countries and 3 major regions. So will you structure your center of excellence and steering committee just for 1 country, 1 region, or how do you address this requirement?
Yeah, I mean, since it's short duration, I would like, because if you have different regional meetings and they come to the global, again, it's going to add to the cadence. So I mean, now given this virtual is a very established pattern, we can make sure all the folks come into one meeting, so we can talk about issues impacting different regions or the project itself. So I would still go with a single COA approach.
Okay, thank you.